So I just saw John Wick Chapter 4, which is the fourth film in the John Wick series, a series that did not start as a smash success. The original, people forget, the original John Wick kind of played limited in theaters, wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't until it hit video that it started a following that warranted theatrical sequels, each of which has been really good. It's not too common that you get an action film series that like maintains or increases the quality. I can only think of a few, and John Wick Chapter 4 is no exception. This might be one of the best action movies I've ever seen. And I've watched action movies since I was a kid. Grew up in the late 70s through the 80s, so you know it was the icons of 80s action. Love older action movies. Love the Hong Kong action movies, which for me, when I first started seeing Jackie Chan and John Woo movies in the early 90s, those were the films that, to me, set the standard for what cinematic action could and should be. And so I was super disappointed in the ensuing years when we got into the 90s and beyond, where action films developed what I call the disease. It infected all of them, and it was the camera being way too close, the camera being way too shaky, everything cut so fast you really couldn't see what was going on. And to me, I'm not impressed by not being able to see the action. The John Wick movies took us back to visible action in every scene, as an old Kung Fu trailer once said that I saw. You could see what was going on. Wide shots, stable camera, and just amazing fight choreography. So John Wick Chapter 4 picks up where John Wick Part 3 or Chapter 3 left off. Basically, he's in a pickle. All the assassins in the world. So the world of John Wick. If you haven't seen one of these, what have you been waiting for? But if you haven't seen one of these, they do a pretty decent job in the beginning of this film and bringing you up to speed, and throughout setting you up for this world, which is this world of assassins that is ruled by the Table, and they have these hotels. The Continental, they're called, and they're basically safe havens for assassins to go where no business is conducted on the grounds. And it's where, you know, if somebody's going to go and kill somebody for money, that's where they go. If they're part of this elite corps of assassins, they stay at these hotels. So there's this interesting mythology that has kind of grown, but just a sprinkle. They don't get too deep into it, which I like. It keeps it mysterious and obtuse enough to know that this is not just thugs that are involved with this world. It's almost like royalty in a way, in a class system and all that. So John Wick Chapter 4 begins with John Wick on the list of the world of assassins. Everybody's out to get him. He's got a price on his head, and he's safe nowhere because he has done bad things in the previous films. Things so bad, or so long since I saw the last films, I can't fill you in on the details. Let's just know people want to kill him. I always said the best thing you can hear, the best line you can hear in a Jackie Chan movie is, "There he is, get him!" And basically, the last John Wick movie or two, the entire world of bad guys is saying, "There he is, get him," and then it's just wonderful. So we see John Wick on the run, trying to get revenge on the people who have put him in this spot, trying to get out of the excommunicado list, and basically taking out anybody who gets in his way. We have the same director from the previous films returns, the same production team, the same peripheral cast. It is a beautiful continuation of this series. I'm going to use a lot of superlatives here. Nobody has paid me to say this, although if you want to pay me to say this, the address will be at the end of the video. I got goosebumps. So the first major action set piece takes place in Japan at the Continental Osaka, or the Osaka Continental, and it is unbelievable action with swords and guns and fisticuffs and daggers and fu and nunchucks, and I don't want to keep going because I don't want to ruin any surprises, but I'm like, literally, you can't see, I literally have goosebumps on my arm right now remembering how amazing the action was in this film. I damn near got teary-eyed being delivered action that was so beautifully done and so properly done, because it seems like Hollywood and the world forgot how to present action on screen, and in very, very rare cases you see it done right, and it was glorious to see this on a big screen opening day and just seeing it do it so right. And it is brutal and funny and gory and incredibly clever and amazing fight choreography between John Wick and the endless army of bad guys. He has killed the equivalent of a mid-sized European nation at this point as far as body count goes. I don't know if anybody's ever tried There's a scene somewhere on YouTube, you can look it up. Somebody has taken the film Commando, and they've shown every kill Arnold commits in that film with a little number and goes ding in the corner. I don't know if anybody's done that for John Wick. It might be impossible. It might be like trying to count the number of cars that crash at the end of the Blues Brothers. It's almost impossible to do it. But John Wick is taking names and crossing them off the list very enthusiastically, shall we say. Also in this film, it's not just Keanu Reeves in this film. You have Donnie Yen. Do you know Donnie Yen? You might know Donnie Yen from Rogue One. He was the blind monk in Rogue One. And interestingly enough, he also plays a blind man in this film. He plays an old friend of John Wick who has been given his name to take out under threat of somebody doing something bad to his daughter. So against his emotional judgment, he goes with the code of the assassin, which is you got to do what you got to do. And Donnie Yen is a blind swordsman slash pistolier, and he is amazing in this film. Johnny Yen has had a career that goes back to the 80s in Hong Kong movies, actually from Boston, interestingly enough, but found fame and fortune in Hong Kong movies. Seeing him a bit more. I saw him at the Oscars recently, which was kind of cool. I think probably because a little tiny micro promo for this film. But he's great in this. And I knew he was going to be in the film, and I was just like, this is like when they had Tony Jaa in one of those Fast and the Furious movies. He's in it for like a scene, and he fights, and he gets beat. No. Donnie Yen is in the duration of this movie. Donnie Yen is just about the co-star of this movie, and what he does is amazing. Scott Adkins is in this film. And Scott Adkins, not a huge name to the general public, but a great contemporary martial artist who is in, I want to say Expendables 2 and or 3 and a lot of other things. He's great. He has worked a lot in straight-to-video action. He's amazing. And in this film, he's amazing. I didn't know it was him until the end credits. I just knew there was this big guy who was really, really good with the fighting and the kicking and the flipping and the flopping. And he was amazing. There's a sequence on I'm just going to ramble off all the highlights of this movie. There's a sequence on a staircase that's unbelievable. There's a sequence in Paris traffic that's unbelievable. This movie is amazing. Again, this is crazy. I've been around a while, and I've seen a lot of movies. I watch as many as I can, you may know, and I love good action movies. And I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, this is one of the best action movies I've ever seen, and this blows my mind. And 4 movies into a series, it's this damn good. And I went into this saying, I really hope they stop with this movie. Not because I don't want to see more great action movies, and not because I don't love the John Wick series, because I do, but I don't want them to do what I call one sequel too many. Hello, Indiana Jones. There's a lot of action movies, a lot of movies in general, where, the lure of the dollar brings people back for one more movie, or the fans just can't get enough of something, and it's one too many. And I feel like this probably is the last John Wick movie. I hope it is, because how many other film series do you have where everyone is great? Not a lot. If we're honest with ourselves, not a lot. And there's humor in this, not a lot, but it's wonderful and dark. Laurence Fishburne is in it, and he's great and badass. Everybody you expect to come back is back. The bad guy in this is Bill Skarsgard, who you know as Pennywise the Clown from the recent It films. And he is this pompous, spoiled head of the table, shall we say, a marquis, I believe, who wears like these really sparkly suits and enjoys getting a lot of other people to do his dirty work for him. And it is wonderful to see his eventual fate in the film. And it's just, I'm going to start looping back on myself. Some more little details. In the in the Japanese sequence, we are given tastes of basically every form of Japanese combat that we've seen in film history. We get a little bit of samurai, we get a little bit of ninja, we get a little bit of sumo, we get various weapons that we've seen. The filmmakers clearly love action movies and are respectful of film history. There's in no way at all, subtle ode to the Warriors in this film, which I enjoyed. I mean, people who are big fans of the Warriors might be like, okay, but it was fun, and it totally made sense for how it was used in the movie. It totally makes sense for, if you know the Warriors, the plot of the Warriors is incredibly similar to the plot of this movie. There is a central figure who everybody else is told, yeah, why don't you go take that person out or that group out? And that's what this movie is. Toward the end, even in the soundtrack, the score in the final cumulative, I think they call it a climax. In the final section of the film, the score echoes music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because the sequence is almost like a Western at the end. And you get Keanu on horseback in the desert at one point. This movie really has it all. And it's globetrotting, like the Bond films are or were in days of old. From my brief recollection, Japan, New York, Paris, Berlin, maybe somewhere in the Middle East, and maybe more than that. It's all over the world. It is gorgeously photographed. Seriously, gang, see this in a theater. I have a AMC near me that has the Dolby Theater, which is supposed to be best sound, best picture. I know it's the best chairs they have. The blue lighting is pretty, and sometimes you can go to a Dolby Theater and it's just literally painfully loud. First time I tried a Dolby Theater, I left because I thought I was going to damage my hearing. This one wasn't as bad, but see it big, see it with good sound. Cinematography is beautiful. All of John Wick movies have had this. The lighting, the neon, the locations, the sets, the costumes. They almost feel like it's almost visually, it's almost a tinge of sci-fi. It's almost like Blade Runner meets an action movie in some of these, if you just turn the sound off. They look so good. And again, the action is so amazing. These movies reward you with multiple viewings because what goes on is so fast. It's not sped up. It's not special effects. I think there's CGI blood spurts for like if somebody gets... I've always enjoyed, since the first John Wick movie, his thoroughness and businesslike manner of one in the head. It's really gruesome. It's really grim. But the first John Wick, it just killed me because he would be just cutting through a forest of assailants, always one in the torso, one in the head. And even if it's hand-to-hand in this movie, there's a lot of that. So some of the little spray of brain matter, this is a classy review, some of the little spray of brain matter is going to be CGI. But other than that, and I think there's another sequence in the film, the traffic thing, I think was aided by that because otherwise somebody probably would have been killed. But I'm going to be wasting your time. Go see John Wick Chapter 4. If you like action movies, if you like Keanu, frankly, I don't think he's that great an actor. I think he's great in this. He clearly has trained to be able to do this stuff really well. I think he's still a bit of a stiff, but I love the John Wick movies. Again, I'm probably going to go, I don't say this about much, I'm going to go see this again at least one more time in the theater because it is so exhilarating. I was giggling like an idiot. I was cackling like a fool in the theater. See it with an audience. Go to a primetime show. I usually try to avoid that and go to matinees because less distractions, let's just say. But this is the kind of movie you want to see with a crowd who applauds and hoots and cheers because this is an applaud and hoot and stand up and cheer movie. This movie is phenomenal. John Wick Chapter 4, currently in theaters, 5 stars from me.